All right. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, I am joined by Mike Hook from Childcare CRM. I'm so happy to have you on the webinar today, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. Thank you. And it is a absolute pleasure to be here. So thanks for having me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you located? I don't think I've ever asked Sierra
So,
where Childcare CRM is.
so we are at our U.S. headquarters here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that's where the U.S. headquarters is. For those who chimed in from Australia, we've also got a team down over in the Brisbane area, over in Australia as well. But
Oh,
I
wow.
am, per the lack of accent here in the States.
Okay, so just to give for those of you that found out about this webinar through me and might not know about Childcare CRM or about Mike, I want to give a quick introduction. Mike Hook is an executive revenue leader with a drive to help grow and empower childcare centers seeking to boost their enrollment. He has a proven track record of developing a valuable selling, implementing sales process, and building internal and external relationships. Mike is a pivotal member of Childcare CRM, currently serving as the VP of Sales and overseeing a growing team which strives to aid early education organizations achieve their business goals. I personally have been using Childcare CRM in my childcare businesses for about 2 years now, and it has helped me tremendously. So I'm excited about this webinar. I know I'm going to learn a lot and how to use CRM better. So without further ado, you can go ahead and get started, Mike, and I'll be here to kind of give my experiences as well. For everyone that is watching live, please use the Q&A box if you have questions throughout the webinar. We'll kind of queue up your questions there and get to them towards the end. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started with Mike.
Awesome. Well, Dani, thank you so much again for having us, for the introduction. And the topic for today, never miss another lead. So when we talk about a lead, we're talking about a new prospective family who's reaching out. So there are a lot of things that we know about families. What is the solution to these? Ultimately, we want to be a source to help you guys implement best practices that allow you to engage with families, grow your enrollment, and then maintain it once you get there. So the problem with leads, with new inquiries coming into your center or into your organization, is that families will inquire for care, but then suddenly they ghost your center. It's happened to all of us. We get an interest and then parents are nowhere to be found. So why are these things happening? What are the common themes that come up? Someone else contacted them before you. So as most parents are millennials, they're used to things happening quickly. So a lot of times, just being the first person to respond can help. But if you aren't, it can be detrimental. And I've seen this as quick as a one-day turnaround. So in some of the conversations we've had, if you're 24 hours without responding to a family, they could ghost you and go somewhere else. They completed a tour with another center first. So going back to that speed to tour, it's really important that we're engaging families, talking to them quickly. They preferred another center's parent engagement and or communication amenities. So how are we responding after the enrollment? So one of the statistics that we have seen is that 80% of new leads never translate into sales. That is a really high number. It might seem alarmingly so, but when we talk about leads, this is from the first time that somebody ever reaches out to you before they maybe even tour. So the number there is really high. So, Dani, I'd like to kind of ask you a little bit as a CRM user and as somebody who is an expert in the space. What is your experience with some of these things around leads ghosting you and how you've seen it in your business?
Yeah, seeing 80% is actually, like you said, a little alarming. I don't know. I don't think that we are quite that high with the number of leads that don't translate into sales. We're probably around, like, if we're talking about from the initial phone call inquiring about care, we're probably around 40% that don't translate into sales. And most of the time, that's due to us not having the space or just not being able to provide the specific form of care that they're looking for. But that number is alarming. I can say that prior to getting CRM, that was more than likely the case, probably higher than that, because we just couldn't keep up with following up or couldn't remember, to that this parent called yesterday and they were looking for us to get back to them the next day. So it is alarming, but it's not that surprising if you don't have some sort of system helping you.
Yeah, and the landscape right now is incredibly competitive when we look at it. And so what we're seeing, and this is from Hi Mama, is that 75% of parents have changed the way they've evaluated childcare providers due to COVID. So we had last year in 2020, and what we're just now getting out of, a world altering event. And it's caused people to go more contactless. It's caused them to go more digital. What we've seen is an increase in leads coming in through the web. And so when you think about, Dani, to your point beforehand, well, before you might have implemented childcare CRM, that number of lost leads is high. Well, it's really hard to manage a high volume of leads when it's done by email or when it's done by, a contact us form, and you're managing online segments and other marketing channels. When you have so many different avenues that are coming in, when they're disjointed from nobody else's fault other than time, it can be really hard. And so when we see parents evaluating and this change in how parents are evaluating centers, they want to know, hey, can you meet me where I'm at? As a childcare organization, are you going to be able to engage with what matters to me? And am I going to be able to have that quickly and comprehensively? And because of this, what we're seeing is that 69% of parents have shared that contactless technology is important to them when selecting a childcare provider, right? So parents want to know, is it maybe contactless payments? And this is kind of the breakdown of what we've seen from these reports. So contactless payments is important. Same with contactless check-in. So are you doing the pickup and drop-offs? Is that, be able to be handled through an app? Parent communication apps are big. At-home activity and content, digital documentation, assessments, and shared videos and pictures. So, I think there are a couple things on here that are really alarming. Shared videos and pictures, 80% of parents would switch providers to be able to have this. And the other one, 63% at the top, digital documentation. So, Dani, within your organization as well, how have you seen this transition to sort of the contactless engagement with parents? And is there anything specifically that you're using that you've seen have a really good engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not surprised by that 80% of shared videos and pictures, because families love it. They love to share it with the grandparents and on social media. It makes it really, it helps them to be comfortable knowing that there is, they're engaged with what their children were learning and participating in throughout the day. And yes, teachers and administrators can tell them at pickup and drop off time what happened, or it could be written in a notebook or something like that. But actually seeing it and being able to share it not only helps them to be comfortable that what you're saying is true, but also they're sharing it and it's promotion for your business. Indirectly. So I would agree that this is something that a lot of families nowadays really value, being able to have this sort of these apps and different contactless methods of uh, activities and stuff in childcare. So we use right now, we use Kangaroo Time at one of our centers, and we use Tadpoles at another. And both of those platforms are great with sharing videos and pictures and daily reports. And they also have the contactless check-in options and payments. And because of COVID, we stopped taking cash and checks, and we only take cards or bank account withdrawals. So kind of shifting towards as less contact as possible is what our goal is.
Yeah, and what a great shift that is too. And I think even on the shared videos and pictures segment of things, these can be really impactful early on with
Right,
parents.
right.
Are you sending virtual tours? You know, we saw have a big spike at the midway point of last year. Or is there maybe a video testimonial from a parent that you could use in the process about them talking about what the centers meant? Or,
Right.
you know, even a little snip of some of the activities that you offer. So when we think about shared videos and pictures, that number 80% is what parents would switch a childcare center for. Well, why not start using something like that early, right when you're engaging with parents, if we know it's this important to them? Show them that it's there early on, so that when you say, oh yeah, by the way, here's how we're going to engage with you once your child's here, you've already done that. So the proof point's built in. And
Right.
now when we talk about these best practices, you know, parents are already believing you because they're like, oh, well, they're already doing this now just to get me here. Of course, when they say they have it, you know, when my child's enrolled, that
Yeah.
I can believe them.
Yeah.
You're building that credibility early and often. So I love the shared videos and pictures one here. And, you know, as you called out, I'm not really totally surprised to see it be that high. I think by nature, we believe what we can see.
Right.
So now more than ever, that's right there. So we've talked a lot about the setup, some of the issues with lead, what we're seeing. So solution, right? How can we help understand who our leads are to make sure that they're not falling out or going somewhere else? So first is understanding your target audience. So who are the ideal families that we want at our center? Are you a nonprofit? Do you work in an area that's lower income? Are you working in a more affluent area? Are there a lot of childcare centers around you? Is competition really high? Or perhaps are you one of the few in your area? Know when to communicate and how. So what are you doing to help bring parents along in that buying journey? Are you sending the videos and pictures early on? How are you using automation to help with that? And then uncover diamonds and lost leads. So how are we re-engaging and remarketing to families who maybe decided to go somewhere else early on in the process? So understanding your target audience, and I think this is a really good place to start, because if you understand who your buyers are and your parents, the families that are coming there, these are the people who are going to spend money with you. And if you're getting a family early on when their child's an infant, hopefully these are families that are going to stay with you for a long time, 5 years normally there. So understanding your target audience, I think, is a great first step. And really, number one, ensuring that they have a need. So when these families are reaching out, do they need care immediately? Do they need care for their infant? Do they have multiple children that they're looking for care? Maybe in the same classroom, maybe not. Are there specific programs they're looking for? It's all about the location, right? So where are you located, and then the cost, right? So is your price point fitting? If you are, again, in a more working class area, does your price point fit that? If you're more affluent area, or anywhere in between. So there's a lot of things to consider here, and doing your due diligence will help. You know, Dani, you've used ChildcareCRM for a couple of years. You've had your centers for a while now. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit how you have outlined really your ideal parent and how you've used that to market your center.
Well, we back in September 2020, so this past summer, we opened our second center-based location, and that location is in a completely different community, in an area where many households are at a different income level than our first location. So one example of reaching our target audience is that difference right there. In our first location, I would say about 90% of our families are subsidy based, where our local Department of Social Services pays us for those children's tuition, because their families are low income or in emergency situations where they cannot afford it. So in searching for children that we did not get our contract with our local subsidy agency at our first location for the first 8 to 9 months of us being open, and it really put a damper on our income and revenue, and we only operated at about 10% of our capacity for nearly a year when we initially opened, until we were able to go through with that contract. So I think making sure that you understand the income levels in your area, and that area also has free universal pre-K for children that are 3 and 4 years old through the local school district. So we also the following year got a contract with them. So I think it's important to, understand the community, understand the needs within your area of your center, because that's very different than our second location that's just 10 minutes away, where there is no free UPK. Majority of the families do pay privately, and the way that we go about targeting families and reeling them into our centers are very different. In the first location's community, we are heavily involved in community events, school district events, and going to like back to school fairs and things like that, and going down to the Department of Social Services and leaving our flyers and things like that, when we don't really have to do that at all with the second location. And with that, we've built in things within our childcare CRM system to help us monitor. We did it in the beginning, so don't ask me, Mike, how I did it, or like, I don't remember. One of your representatives helped me to set this up within CRM, being able to label like the categories of inquiries when they call, like, okay, they called us and they told us they have DSS, and generating those sorts of reports help us to think about these things and exactly find out what our target audience is between both centers.
So thank you for sharing that. And I think one of the things you highlight here that's so impactful, and I'd like to kind of highlight everybody who's here, everybody who's listening to this, if you have multiple centers, or even if it's just one, think about this a little bit. 2 centers, 10 minutes apart, totally different ways to market them, totally different ways you're touring families, different ways you're communicating. And these centers are close. You're talking 10 minutes away. This isn't different states or different, counties within the state. So I think understanding your audience, it is granular. It does need to be on a center by center basis, or, for the larger organizations out there that I've worked with, some of them make a conscious decision to only have a specific type of center in a specific area. Maybe, for instance, they want something that's near school district. So that's how they build their acquisition model out. And, another thing too that you mentioned, when you look at your location, when you look at the demographic who's coming in, is, well, are all the families that are looking at our center in our same zip code? It's really interesting to see, are people actually coming from somewhere else to come to this center because of our cost or because of a special program we have? And how are we understanding that, and how are we continuing to leverage that to help grow our center? So, understanding your target audience, absolutely, you do need to know not only what's bringing them in, but from there, some of the things that maybe aren't as easy to identify, where are they coming from, and how do we want to look at this? And how long are they staying? So are we creating this, and is it having longevity for us
Right.
from
And
infant to when they age out to kindergarten?
I will say that even though my centers are in different communities and uh, are 10 minutes away from each other, because we have made a name for ourselves in our first location, and when we opened our second location, had a wait list for the first one. We were able to kind of bring some of the families that would probably not have looked for childcare over to our second location, being that it was only 10 minutes away, and we provide transportation. So we've kind of brought some of our target audience from our first location over to the second, as a result of that.
I love that. I love that. And you were able to use your, your existing strong brand to help go over there. And were the parents pretty excited about that when you were able to offer it?
Yeah, for the most part. And we were also fortunate enough to we kind of took over a program that had been closed for several months due to COVID, and the owner was not really interested in reopening. So we just came in, licensed it under our own name, and he gave us his contact list of families from over the years. So we added them to our CRM and started pushing out emails and stuff to those families. But the ones that were coming from us or were on our wait list for location number one were absolutely excited that we had space for them just a few minutes away.
Well, that's such a great story about how you grew early on the second center there. And, I think part of this and what we're talking about and understanding your audience is not only understanding where they are coming from, what they're doing, but how do we engage with our audience? So 80% of today's parents to children under 12, millennials. And what does that mean? We all know there's all sorts of things out there about millennials, and I'm a millennial, I fit in here. But millennials grew up with technology. They grew up with, even in the early days, the Blackberries, right? So internet even was on phones there. The iPhone came out. AOL was there. So this is a demographic of people who are used to being on the internet. Millennials have had social network. They've been able to go on Google and figure something out instantly. So when we talk about right from the start, where are leads going, this importance of responding quickly, and not only responding quickly, but the importance of actually engaging with millennial parents in a way that they communicate, having that strong brand. Dani, you were talking about, you had this strong brand at your first center. It allowed you really to go and fill your second one. There's, I'm sure, plenty of things that you've done without getting too much into your business model that have helped bring those parents along, right? Engaging with these millennials. So it is really important to be cognizant of that as you're building out your strategy, as you're understanding your audience, that millennials have grown up. And in order to be successful, you have to meet them where they're at. And a lot of times that's on their cell phone and on their computer. And with that is social media. So we live in this area of social proof. It's very easy to find reviews on companies. And so 62% of millennials said that if a brand engaged with them on a social network, they were more likely to become a loyal customer. So this idea of communicating in the communities where they're at. Facebook is a really big channel, Instagram, another one, and then showcasing positive reviews. So 82% of consumers read online reviews for local businesses before they ever even contact them. So, as we're talking about this, for everyone out there, I want to take a second really quickly and think about how you make decisions to do things. What is the first step that you go about? Do you make a call and hear from somebody, or do you go online to read a review about it first? Do you go search out word of mouth from a friend who maybe has had an experience with them already? Are you going onto their social network or Capterra for something like that? So think about how you engage and buy things, and realize that in a lot of ways, your parents are probably doing the exact same thing when they're looking for care. They want to go online and see, is this reputable? Am I putting my child, the most important thing in the world to me, in a place that's safe, that'll give me peace of mind, that'll help them grow, that'll help them develop? So, Dani, I'd be interested to know for you, you talked about having a really strong brand at your center. What socials and social networks are you using in order to get the word out and engage with your families?
So I will be honest and say I am not doing a fantastic job at keeping up a great social media presence, as good as I know that I should be. We do have Facebook, we do have Instagram, and we also, run ads on them as well as on Google and Yelp. But we really do have the area where our first location is only a neighborhood that is 1 square mile. There's only 3 elementary schools, and we have, I think most of our leads come from word of mouth and also seeing our name throughout the community. Like I mentioned before, we provide transportation, which not many programs in the area do, and our vans are wrapped with our logo. So every day for several hours throughout the day, our van is driving around the community, and we often get, when we ask, how did you hear about us? A lot of the times it's, I saw your van driving, or they pick up a child across the street from me, and also going to those community events. But I will say that we have had cases over the past couple of years where people have found us on Instagram specifically, because oftentimes when we do have cute videos or we have events that we're trying to promote or push out, I'll run ads for them, and I notice that they're often like saved or shared, depending on how cute and engaging they are. So Instagram works well for us, probably mostly because that's what I personally am most comfortable with using, and I keep up with Instagram better than I do Facebook.
Yeah. And so I think it sounds like that's a pretty good area for your buyers to engage. And are you also, in addition to the socials, are you doing anything right now to showcase any of the reviews that you get that make it easy for parents to find?
We have on our website, on our company website, we have about 2 years ago, I took video testimonials from families, about 6 or 7 of them. I asked them I set up a camera on a tripod during drop off or pickup time in the evening, and asked a few of our families that I know had been with us for a while that would say great things. I asked them to leave a review or let us share their experience. So I put those videos together and took some excerpts from our Google and Yelp reviews that we have gotten, and put them on our website. So there's a tab on our website that says reviews for people that are interested in learning about how other people feel about us, to see that. But we also, in addition to people finding us from word of mouth or seeing our name throughout the neighborhood, a lot of them will say that they called because we have great reviews on Google specifically. So that really, showcasing our reviews does help a lot.
Yeah. And having someone call in and reference Google and reference reviews, I think it all goes back to how are parents buying today and how are parents looking at centers. They are doing that due diligence online first. So just by having good reviews, that already puts you in that category where now you're an acceptable place to go. If you don't have reviews, it's not the end of the world, because you can always start. Just one review is already better than none. If you start gathering those, and it's, with getting reviews, it's all about asking. So I think for all of us out there, and, Dani, I don't know if you have a specific process for getting reviews. I know you said you set up the tripod one day, but families generally, they want to help, right? want to help people who are helping them, and taking care of someone's child is definitely helping them out. So if you are offering, all these contactless drop off that parents like, if you are engaging with them, if you are having a happy child who's coming back and saying great things, or, when you've got a teacher who a parent has great rapport with and they're feeling really good, when you hear good things from these parents, it's a great time to reach out and ask them, hey, would you write us a review? And this could be at the 2-week mark. This could be at the 30-day mark. And you can really use communications in day timers and countdowns to help get that information from parents and help start building up these reviews. And, Dani, I think I love the fact that you have that tab right on your website, because the number one place that still generates demand more than anywhere else is a company's website. And having that there, we know families are always going to go to the website to find more information.
And you saying that actually reminded me, I forgot about the fact that you guys in CRM have that automation, or I don't know if it's still like automatic or someone helped me in the beginning to set it up, but that automated email that goes out to new leads or families that just start saying, that says, how it's been your first week, how has your experience been? And we don't have it set up where it's a link directly to our, like, to leave a review publicly, but I often have families reply to that saying positive things, but it just comes as an email. So you actually reminded me just now that I should probably update that with a link directly to like our Google page or something like that.
Yeah, and it's great to get that right out there too, because now you're building up that review, you're building up that social proof without doing any extra work to do it. I mean, obviously it's a lot of work now to get happy parents and grow your center, but you're doing all the work there. Use these reviews as sort of an additional reward. And
Right.
Dani, you mentioned a lot of word of mouth referrals for you. I mean, there's no better testimonial than a family saying, I want my friend to send their child here too. And by knowing how you're doing from your reviews, that'll give you a really good gauge on if you could expect word of mouth. If your reviews aren't as great, well, you probably want to address that. You're probably not going to get a lot of word of mouth. If you're getting really great reviews back, well, now this is probably something that could happen for you. And it's a great way to kind of look into the future, if you will, on what's your impact in the community and how many parents are going to refer their children and their friends to your center. And so I think when we talk about millennial parents, how are we communicating and how are we meeting our families where they're at? How are we making sure that we're getting quick responses, that we're getting to people quickly? Millennials, again, growing up with their phone. So 60% of millennials prefer texting over email and phone to communicate with businesses. Was pretty surprising when I read this as someone who actually enjoys picking up the phone and calling people, but 60%, so over half of people want to text you. So if you're not texting and one of your competitors is, well, just because someone likes to communicate better that way, they're more likely to engage. So you want to make sure that you're texting, or at least have it as an option. And the other thing with text is it is quick. So it allows for a very rapid back and forth. So what we've done at ChildcareCRM, we run our benchmark report from our customer base. So we've taken the 4,000 customers that use our platform, and we noticed that our highest lead converters, so the companies and the centers who are converting leads at the highest, have 3.8 times as many individual texts and 6.3 times as many group text messages. So if you're texting, and not only if you're texting, but if you're texting at a high velocity, you're actually able to see this family is more likely to enroll. And so when we do this, it's really impactful. It's really impactful. And, Dani, I'm curious for you as well with your centers. Are you texting families regularly right now? And is this something that you've actually seen increase as part of the enrollment process?
Yeah, so I actually have not upgraded my CRM as yet. So we don't have this beautiful text option on my end yet, but we did start texting our families over the summer for the first time. We got a specific phone line for enrollment. We call it our enrollment hotline when we text families, because we want to make it clear that this texting communication is just for enrollment and not after your child has already started. But it absolutely helps. It makes conversations quick. It gets them, it helps to get what we need from the families as quick as possible. And give them the information that they would like as quick as possible, as well. So it also helps us with if families are not answering the phone because they can't talk or they're at work or something like that, they're more than likely to respond to a text. Oftentimes, I don't know if those of you that are watching that have childcare businesses try to call families and their voicemail is full and you can't leave a message, and they probably don't have your number saved and don't know that it's you. So sending a text right after calling and trying to leave a voicemail also helps with us getting a call back if we need to. So we really love texting right now. It has saved us a lot of time and definitely helped us with getting new children through our doors more quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm happy that you've adopted it, and just so you know, you don't even have to pay any more to upgrade to this. We can just turn it on for you.
Oh, no.
That's it. But another option that you have is actually allowing parents to schedule their own tours. So because now parents do a lot of research online to go figure out about your center and the reviews ahead of time, sometimes there's enough good information there that a parent will say, well, I don't need to talk to anybody. I want a tour right now. And when we kicked this off, one of the things we talked about was, well, leads ghost you because you don't get back to them quickly enough. Quickly enough being within a day. So what we've seen, again, going back to our benchmark report, is that amongst our top performing users, 79% of their new leads completed a tour within 24 hours of reaching out. So with this right here, you can have scheduled tours right on your website. And it means, is it after hours? Is a parent searching at midnight because they've had a long day of work and they're coming home and now they're trying to find care after hours, and they just want to set up a tour at a time that works for them and at a time that your director is free as well. So you're not worried about double booking or going over. This is a great tool to put, again, right on your website where you can actually have parents self-serve and then show up. And now there's different levels of automation that can key in off this to send what to expect with the tour. Maybe one of those videos we were talking about earlier. So by giving your parents the ability to actually self-serve and self-select these times, you can increase the number of tours you do, cut down on the time it takes to do those tours, and ultimately what this means is increase your chance of converting and then enrolling those families. And so we've talked a little bit about the necessary speed of communication. And we've talked a little bit about how texting and the number of texts actually relates to higher enrollment. Well, this is because it's following this rule of 7. And the rule of 7 states that families need to hear a message 7 times before they'll consider enrolling for care. And with this rule of 7, now this isn't necessarily 7 phone calls or 7 emails, but it's 7 points of communication. So we can do automated drip campaigns that'll help send messages out at a specific time or a specific day or after X number of days. You can have text and email mixed, and you could also have by buying stage automated emails and call reminders set up. So for a parent who just reached out for care, what are the 3 to 4 things that they need to hear in order to move them to the next step? And then what are the handful of things after that? So as you go stage by stage in a parent's decision to buy or a decision to move forward with your center, How are you engaging with them, and how are you using automation to help make you, as a center director, as a center owner, have a wider reach and more touch points, but without adding extra work? So some of the ways you can do this, we mentioned some automation, but making sure that you're setting these automations up to use preferred methods of communication. So text and email, as well as phone calls. So mixing all three of those in together to make sure that parents are responding and you're meeting them where they're at. Changing the message throughout the journey. So if I am just reaching out for care, maybe I do want some of those testimonials from parents, or what to expect when I'm touring, or the questions to ask on a tour. Maybe these are the type of emails that I want, and the type of information that you can give me that will help better prepare me to tour. And then after that tour, maybe there are a child care center checklist, things that your child care center could have that, and maybe you skew it unique to your center or unique to your area, so that it helps parents understand what to expect there. These are all things that will help you to engage families, communicate with them more, and help drive them into the center. So Dani, I know we've had some conversations about the rule of 7 beforehand. So I was wondering if you could share some of your thoughts around the rule of 7, how maybe you're using it at your centers today, and how it's helping to grow some enrollment for you.
Yeah, it's so funny seeing this slide, because my employee who is primarily responsible for maintaining enrollment and like getting new families to come in through the door, I always kind of joke with her about, I call it 7 touches. It takes 7 touches to get to gain a new customer. I don't remember where I heard that first. It honestly might have been at a ChildcareCRM conference or something a couple years ago. But it's just funny. I'm going to send her this clip of the webinar and make that joke with her again, because every time I see like missed, with CRM, you can see like if you miss a task or miss a phone call or email or something, I joke with her about that. But it's absolutely true. We have those automated emails that go out to the families, even if they stop answering our calls, or if they don't reply to a text message, or if they don't show up for an event they signed up for. What we do have is the automated emails that continue to drip out up to a certain number of weeks. And one of those final emails is letting them know that we will miss you at our center, basically letting them know that, we understand that you're not interested anymore, and there's, basically we won't contact you or something like that. And I would say half the time that those final emails go out, it prompts the family to call us and let us know, no, please don't give our spot away. We are interested. We'd like to register next month, and they're apologetic. So I do think that the rule of 7 does lead to success with new enrollments. And sometimes, as a consumer of other businesses, I rely on like emails coming to me. Like if I know that I want something and maybe don't want to spend the money right now, and I don't feel like writing it down to remind myself, I know they're going to email me. I know Target is going to send me that promotion 5 more times throughout the rest of the month. So I'm not going to forget about it. So that's kind of how I see it. At first, I was like, oh, I don't want to be annoying or bombard them with, marketing phone calls or try to solicit their business. But that's not how it is. It's just reminding them that we're still an option. We're still interested in providing this service that I know you need. We're here.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're anything like me, and if anybody, who's listening to this is anything like you and I are, there's never enough time in the day. Like, I've never gotten to bedtime and been like, oh man, I had way too much time today to get everything done. And we know center directors have so much going on, right? And we know that the parents do too, especially parents who have young children. So Is it reasonable to think maybe they forgot to get back about childcare? Absolutely.
Right.
So that reminder, those emails, those touch points, multiple going out, are a helpful thing. They're not pestering. They're not a nuance. It's people are busy. We sometimes need reminders.
Right.
And this is a great way to do it, and do it without taking extra burden, extra time in an already busy day for the director. And I think part of that, just leading right into uncovering diamonds and lost leads, is the ability to go back in time. So if you lose a family for whatever reason, maybe there's a teacher in the 1-year-old classroom that everybody loves. She is just great reviews. She's wonderful. But the 2, 3-year-old classrooms aren't as great. Well, you can go back, re-engage those families, send out those drip campaigns, get them back. And so, Dani, there's a lot of different ways to message to families. Do you have anything that you're using from a messaging standpoint really quickly? I know we're getting down to time and we're almost done here, but is there anything that you use to re-engage families and lost opportunities right now? And has it been helpful?
I don't think that we have anything specific other than CRM. I know that oftentimes after, like, if a family does move forward through our CRM pipeline and, doesn't respond to that final email, or it's been several months since they've inquired, we will mark them as a lost opportunity. But at least twice a year, we always send out some sort of mass email or text message through CRM to our families. And that will often bring back families that were initially interested a year ago or 2 years ago. And for whatever reason, just didn't enroll at that time, but wants to enroll now. But aside from using CRM, there's nothing else that we really do to engage lost leads.
And so by capturing these lost leads, by knowing that they're there, by having a system where you can communicate them, you can re-engage these lost leads. And so there's using triggering events in order to re-engage. So did you have a change of staff at your center? Do you have a new amenity that came in? Are there new programs that are launching? These are big things that might be able to help you guys gain more enrollments just with one message. Sending a survey. So this is a great way to gauge why a parent disengaged. So we talked a little bit beforehand about sending out that 2-week, 30-day email that asks parents to send a review. Well, it's a great best practice to understand why a parent didn't move forward with your center, to understand what they went for at another center, and use this as an opportunity to learn, to re-engage. Again, maybe you send this out and you get enough answers back from these surveys about a specific program that then prompts you to start that program, that then allows you to use a triggering event like starting a new program to re-engage. And the other thing is being open and honest. People like transparency. They like to be told the truth. So as you are, being really yourself, being your center, who you are, that opportunity to connect, to schedule a tour is a really great thing. So if, for example, I know we talked about reviews. Here's a great use case for this, right? Let's say maybe you've got a 3.5-star review at your center, and that's kind of what you're getting, but you spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to renovate the center or to add new programs. This is a great time to go and re-engage leads and say, we know we weren't where you wanted us beforehand, but here's what we've done, and here's what we're excited to bring to the community now. And so using these all together, it's a great way for you to re-engage lost leads and fill the top of the funnel. So that is the end. I know it's been a lot of information. I appreciate everybody for hanging in there with us this afternoon. Dani, I don't know if you wanted to open it up for Q&A. I haven't seen the chat, so I don't know if anything came in there. But as we get to some of the questions, if anybody wants to chat with me, the team at ChildcareCRM more, feel free to give us a call. For the US, 866-306-1985. For Australia, +61 280398276. And then we always have sales at childcarecrm.com. So, Dani, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I actually didn't see anything come in the Q&A box yet. I'm not sure if you guys are saving your questions till the very end, but now is the best time to go ahead and put it in the Q&A box if you did have questions that you wanted Mike to answer live. I see someone has their hand raised. I'm not sure if that is an accident. It's been raised for a while. Their label is reception. I'm not sure. Okay, there you go. She put her hand down. They put their hand down. Someone did put in the comment box, my job has auto-generated emails that go out to our leads based on the progress of their spot to secured enrollment. And that is what CRM does do or can set up, those automated, that's the drip campaigns you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so there's drip campaigns, and then there's also automated what we call business rules. So you can create a drip campaign to send out emails, and you can fire that as part of a marketing effort in an isolated instance. You can also have it trigger based on a specific status. So again, if someone goes from tour scheduled to tour completed, what are those next set of automated emails and steps that you want to take, not only from an automated standpoint, but from a actual director phone call or organization phone call to follow up with those parents.
Right, right.
I did see one question pop up here, and it's, please explain how you handle negative reviews. So Dani, has that happened to you? And do you want to take a stab at that one first as an actual center owner? I'd be happy to share some best practices around it as well.
Sure, and I will be glad to listen to your best practices. So my center has been my first location. Well, I've been a childcare business owner since 2014. I started as a home daycare, and in 2017, I got my first center license. And up until late last year, so just a few months ago, I had never received a public negative review online. The first time that it happened to me was after a CPS case that we had to report. Unfortunately, thank goodness those children are okay, but as mandated reporters, that's something we have to do. And of course, that resulted in a negative review from the family. So I did see the review, and my initial response was emotional, but I didn't want to answer it in that moment. I gave it a couple of days, then went back to it and basically responded with, being sympathetic and just explaining the facts surrounding that situation, and shedding light on the fact that we are mandated reporters, and this is something that we have to do. And even if it might be an uncomfortable phone call to make, this is what we are legally obligated to do. And just kind of being apologetic and sympathetic and just being factual, and not necessarily like pointing fingers or exposing too much personal information, just being sensitive, especially about that topic. But I would say initially a negative review, especially for a center owner who's invested in the business, can be emotional, and taking a step back and maybe letting someone else read your response before you post it, I think is helpful. But I'd love to hear what you think, Mike.
Well, a lot of what you said is spot on. And I have never seen anybody change someone's mind from negative to positive through typing on a keyboard or responding to comments. Right. So I think you're spot on. Number one is you have to take the emotion out of it and realize, like, is this somebody who's on here and just is unhappy and this is a invalid negative review, or is this a valid concern that I need to handle? So I think understanding that first and foremost, so taking some of the emotion out of it, which is very difficult to do, but necessary. The next thing from there is really, like you said, having a very non-emotional, but factual response, acknowledging, apologizing, and then giving some type of direction or resolution to that. Because remember, these negative reviews, people are going to listen to your responses and read your responses on these negative reviews, probably more so than they will on the positive ones.
Right.
Because people want to know. So this is actually a great time for you to build up some of that EQ, that emotional intelligence you have, in order to give a very strong answer that makes people feel safe when they're reading it, or that just, as you said, Dani, calls out the facts like, hey, this is a legally mandated thing we had to do.
Right.
And I did this to make sure that we're keeping our center safe, you as a family safe, and your child safe.
Right. Yeah. And I honestly, when I do, as a consumer of other businesses, I look to reviews often, as I'm sure we all do. And I will see how that company responds, and that helps me to make my decision about whether or not to move forward with them. I was looking to purchase a puppy a couple months ago from this specific business, so random, and their puppies were so cute, but they had so much negative reviews, and I would have still gone forward with using that location until I saw how the owner was responding to these people. I was like, what is wrong with her? Like she seems a little crazy. So yeah, I think it's all in the response. We do have one more question from Briani. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. She'd like to know, in terms of 7 touches to make a sale, do you recommend a timeline for those 7 touches, or is it more of a case-by-case situation for each lead?
What a great question.
Yeah.
I absolutely suggest a timeline. So when we talk about touch number 1, immediately. So whether that is a family coming in and filling out information online, kick them something. Thank you for submitting. We're going to get back to you soon. And then it's, okay, let's pick up that phone and call, because now we know that lead came in, we've been assigned a task, right? So right off the bat, we want immediately, as soon as possible, up front. From there, generally what we see is early in the process, we like to have some drips that are a little bit spaced out, getting a little bit tighter towards the end. So think about early on, you get that first inquiry, you send the email out, you follow up, you don't get a hold of the family. Well, now you can set a follow-up task for a call, but also let these automated emails come into play. So maybe the following day you're sending a text message to them, automated out through a system using templates. Then 2 days later, you've got an email. 3 days later, you've got a phone call. And that would all be in this like new inquiry stage, right? Before you actually got a hold of a family. Then once you get a hold of them, it's okay, now we've engaged this family. We're going out to schedule a tour. So we want to pick up the frequency a little bit there. And then finally, once you get that tour scheduled and once you get that tour completed, now we've gone through this, and the tour completed being the critical event and a family deciding to move forward or not. So you want them done in a pretty quick window. The other thing that you can do is you can always set up conditional drip campaigns based on a start date. So if you know a family says, hey, I'm starting in 6 months from now, so we're going to have our child in 3 months, we want to put them in 6, you can actually create a drip campaign that will allow you to communicate with that family in a consolidated window over that 6 months. So in that regard, maybe you want a little bit of a longer drip that's coming out with what to expect on your first day. Now we're staying engaged with them. So you absolutely do want this all to happen quickly, because we know parents will decide relatively quick. I think 7 to 14 days a parent can, look for care, decide on care. Sometimes it's even quicker. So you do want to make sure you're operating within that window, but there are scenarios too where you want to be mindful of, hey, we've decided to move forward with you, but we want to stay engaged. So how are you doing that in a respectful manner there? So hopefully that answered that question well.
Yeah, and that was a really good question, Brianni. And you actually just gave me a different idea, Mike. I didn't even think of that. Oftentimes, when parents call and say, like right now, we're getting a lot of calls for September, and to be on, and mostly with our second location. To be honest, with our first location, that's not something we're used to. Usually, when families at that location need childcare, they need it tomorrow. So hearing that families are so far in advance looking for care, right now we're just putting them in CRM and assigning a task for ourselves to reach back out to them in August or something, when really, yes, we will most likely do that, but it would be a lot, it would give me reassurance that I know those families will be reminded of us over the summer and will probably call us back to confirm if I did schedule automated messages to go out to them a month or two before they're actually going to enroll. So I'm going to look into setting those up.
Give us a call.
Yes, but we are out of time, and I do not see any more questions in the Q&A box. So I wanted to really thank you so much for being here and sharing all this information with us. Would you mind repeating how anybody that does not already have CRM can get in contact with you guys or learn more about you?
Yes, if you want to know more about Childcare CRM, you can go to our website, www.childcarecrm.com, poke around, see if there's anything there that interests you. If there's more you'd like to talk on that we covered today, you can give us a call. If you're located in the US, that number is going to be 866-306-1985. And if you're in Australia, +61 2 8039 8276. And you can also send us an email to sales@childcarecrm.com.
Perfect. And if you could, you or Sierra could email that information to me, I'll definitely include it in the video replay that I send out. So for any of you that might have missed some of the things that we said, check for the replay, and I'll also include the contact information within that email as well. And again, thank you so much for being here, Mike, and thanks for all the information you shared, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you as well. It was a pleasure, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.